Hi, it's Lauren. Welcome back to my craft room. Today is officially the full release from Heffy Doodle, and I wanted to share some of the items I have. This is the 6x6 Basics pattern paper pack called Fright Night and the matching enamel dots. As you can see, they've already gotten some love as I've worked on some samples. There are also four new sequin mixes. This one's called Hocus Pocus. Absolutely love the colors, very typical Halloween. There is Firefly, which gives like a night kind of fire vibe, even kind of like campfirey. There's Pumpkin Spice, which of course got our orange and yellow and white tones in there. And finally, Tutti Frutti, which has pink, blue, and purple, and some like iridescent vibes to it. I have three of the new stencils. This first one is called the Sleepy Hollow stencil, and there are three different kind of scenes you can build from this: a graveyard, a scarecrow with trees, and kind of a spooky castle. I also have the Bean Scene stencil, and this is great with the coffee products. And finally, I have Love is Everywhere stencil. Let's take a look at the stamp sets. I have two of the more Halloween themed sets from the release. This first one is called Ghoul Friends. I get sample products as I'm part of the design team, so I just wanted to slide in one of the stamp backgrounds so you can see how it will look when you receive it. There are also coordinating dies with this set. I absolutely think the little ghosts are just so cute and such great punny sentiments to go along with the stamps. Next is Let's Hang Out, which have the most adorable bats and spiders. I don't like spiders, but these little fuzzy spiders are so cute, and I love the spider webs and all that you can do with this set. Next, I have the Perfect Blend stamp set and its coordinating dies. These have lots of different mugs and coffee cups so you can make tea or hot chocolate or pumpkin spice lattes. Really, really cute for this season. And there's also a tea time sentiment stamp set, which gives you just some additional sentiments to go with the whole coffee and tea theme. The final stamp set I received were these Essential Phrases sentiment stamps, and these just pair really well with the rest of your dies and stamp sets where you need a little bit more to add to your sentiments. My dies that I received are the Warm Hugs and You're So Sweet jumbo dies, and they come with a shadow die cut. I also have the Trick or Treat jumbo die and this Happy Halloween Heffy shadow die. Next, we have some more dies. This is the Elm Street die set, which comes with a really cool tree, a haunted house, spider web, a really fun border. And I also have the Cathedral Window die set, which have stitched borders, so you can have a stitched edge on either side of your die cut. And Heffy Doodle just released some really awesome shaker dies. This is called the Sweet Tooth Shaker dies. You can make really cute lollipops or cake pops. There's so many different ideas. I also have the coffee cup shaker dies, as you quickly saw that I am going to use later on this month, but you can create really fun cups of coffee and include a gift card or a shaker. And finally, that was the Hey Sweetie Pie freebie stamp set and die that is out for the release. Okay, so now let's jump into creative mode. These are the supplies from the new release that I'm going to be using. I'm going to start with the Love is Everywhere stencil, and I'm going to do some stenciling on my little silicone sticky mat, and I'm going to be using Distress Oxide. So I'm going to center some mixed media, which is very similar to watercolor cardstock, behind my stencil using some Heffy memo tape to keep that stencil in place. And then I'm going to grab my Tutti Frutti sparkle mix, and I'm going to use those colors as inspiration for picking out Distress Oxide. So I picked out four different colors, and they are Kitsch Flamingo, Twisted Citron, Peacock Feathers, and Wilted Violet. I'm going to get my little dome foamed ink blenders together so I can distress through my stencil. So starting with Twisted Citron, I'm just going to add green in various spots. Then I'll move into that Kitsch Flamingo to add some pink, peacock feathers to add my teal blue, and finally wilted violet to bring in that purple. I am going to bring back my dome foam of the green and pink and just kind of smooth out the colors where they overlap in the hearts a little bit, and then I'll move back into the blue and purple until it looks really nice and there aren't any harsh lines on my hearts through my stencil. And once I'm done, I'm going to pick up my little area here and then we'll do a reveal of the stencil. I just think it looks so pretty. These colors are really fun together, and I think the Tutti Frutti Sparkle Mix is a lot of fun. I wanted to add a little bit more pink since I kind of lost the color, so I'm going to just add some Kitsch Flamingo to my silica mat, and I added some liquid pixie dust from Ink on 3, which is just a liquid sparkle, and I added water, and I'm going to use a paintbrush, and I'm just going to flick on more pink throughout the card. Once I'm all done adding how much I want, I'm just going to set this aside to dry, and I'm going to clean up my desk, and we'll move on to die cutting. For the die cuts, I'm using the new shaker dies. Again, this is called the Sweet Tooth Shaker Die Set. And I was going to edit out myself going through all the pieces, but I just wanted to show you how you can use all these different dies together as I'm trying to figure out which ones I want to use for my little lollipops today. So we have the round with a stick on it, which you can use for a lollipop, you can use for a cake pop. We have like a cute little kind of wrapping around the lollipop or cake pop or whatever that's going to be. We also have a cool circle die cut to help with making a shaker, as well as that border. You can see the really cute stitching in there. And then there's kind of that like peppermint style cut in the circle there. And I think that makes the backgrounds of a shaker are going to look really cool. So I'm going to be cutting my stick out of some craft cardstock. I'm going to be cutting my circle out of acetate. I'm going to be cutting my packaging and my border circle out of some pearlescent vellum as well as white cardstock. And then I'm going to cut out my circle again with that really cool lollipop pattern in the background out of some bubblegum blush Heffy colored cardstock. I wanted to show how you can cut out the thick acetate with your little mini die cut machine. So I am laying down my acetate with my die in between my two plates, and I'm also adding in the plastic shim, and that will help you cut through a thicker acetate. That little shim is what's really going to help. So now that all my die cuts are done, let's start assembling these little candy shakers. So I've got my Heffy Doodle foam adhesive in the strips, and I'm going to start gluing my pieces together. Now I'm making 2 shakers, so I'm only going to show you the steps for one, but I am gluing that pearlescent vellum to some white cardstock. So these were both cut out of that border kind of circle with the really pretty stitching in the middle, and then I'm going to glue that piece on top of my acetate. So this is going to be the front of my shaker, my little candy shaker. So I have my pearlescent, white cardstock, and then acetate, and that is the top of my shaker. Now for the background, it's going to be that really cute little pink kind of lollipop looking peppermint style candy, and I was layering everything down, and I noticed that I just wanted my little candy stick to be a little longer, and I had only cut out the back of my packaging out of the vellum because I wanted to show the brown stick through it. But since I wanted to bring the brown stick down, I cut out some additional of that packaging out of some white cardstock, and I'm gluing them together, the vellum and the white, just like I did for the circle that will be around my candy shaker. And that way I can glue the brown stick further down and you can't see it. So now I'm going to layer the back of my shaker because I have the top already done. So I'm adding that packaging to the back of my pink background for the shaker. And then I'm going to add my little stick behind that. So again, lowering it down just so they look a little longer. I love that this die set, it just makes it so easy to play around and create your own candy or cake pops or anything from these dies. Next, I'm going to add my foam adhesive to the back of my shaker tops, and this circle actually fits one of these strips perfectly. I was able to go completely around the circle. I didn't have to trim it, and it will be nice and snug, and you don't need to worry about your sequins falling out. So now I'm taking that Tutti Frutti and I'm pouring some into my little shakers. I'm going a little heavy because nothing else really is going to be inside them. And then I made sure also that any of the rhinestones inside of my shaker were facing out. So that way I wouldn't see the back of them when I flip them over. And then I am adding the backside of the little candies to the back. And there we have our two little pink candy shakers. And they are so, so cute. So now let's start figuring out my layout on the card. I know I want both of these on there, but I also want to include a birthday sentiment. So I'm going to grab first my largest of my stitched rectangles in the imperial size to cut out an A2 size background. So this is 4¼ by 5½. And then I'm going to take the happy birthday, just the sentiment part of the Heffy shadow die cut, and I'm going to cut out happy birthday out of some black cardstock. But I wanted to also bring in to show you how you can use this new essential phrases as part of your already sentiment die cuts. So I'm going to grab wishing you a, and I'm going to stamp that onto my background. So these new essential phrases sentiments are just so great to work with die cuts and other sentiments that you already have in your stash. This is just going to help you build onto those. So I grab my Misty, I'm going to line it up so it's the center and it's nice and straight using that grid on the Misty to help me. Once it's in place, I'll grab my VersaFine and Onyx Black and I'm going to stamp that onto the top of my background. I went ahead and stamped it twice to make sure that there is a nice even amount of ink, and then I'm going to use a holographic embossing powder from Ranger. I thought it would match really nicely with that pearlescent vellum and give it an iridescent shiny look. So I'm just going to use my heat gun to melt that down, and once it's cool we'll move on to the next part. I'm cutting out happy birthday from that die 3 times, and I'm going to use some wet glue with a fine tip to glue the 3 layers together. And this is just to bring some sturdiness to my sentiment and to make it elevated without having to use any foam adhesive. So I'm just going to glue all of them together. I'll show here once how I glued 2 of my happies together, and then I'll go ahead and skip through the rest. To glue the tittle of the eyes together, I'm just taking my memo tape and I'm flipping. Oh, it takes me a while to get all 3 of these facing the same direction of the die cut. And then I will just put a little bit of glue and use a jewel picker to layer them together. And keeping it on the memo tape just means it will stay in one place and I won't lose it because these are such tiny little die cuts. And if I'm not careful, I'll just like swipe and clean my desk and I'll lose them forever. So now that my sentiments are all glued together, I'm going to start assembling my card. So I'm figuring out how I'm going to layer my 2 little shakers together. I want them to overlap so they look like they're just, fun little candies, maybe just came out of the piñata. So I'm going to add more glue behind each of my shakers. Now there are die cuts from that little peppermint swirl kind of design, so I don't want to just put glue all over the back because I don't want it to seep through those die cut lines and cause my sequins in my sparkle mix to not actually move around. So just be aware of that when you're gluing this down. And then once I have one down, I'm doing the other one. And they overlap so cute, and I just love how all of the colors are really coming together. The Heffy Doodle Bubblegum Blush matches that Kitsch Flamingo really, really well. So now I'm going to work on gluing down my sentiment. So I'm going to start with birthday, and I'm going to use my grid mat to help me make sure that that is nice and centered on the bottom of my card. I'm overlapping those like brown lollipop sticks. And once I like the placement, I'm actually going to grab the shadow die, which is what normally cuts a shadow around the happy birthday sentiment. And I'm going to use it just to help me with placing happy onto my card. So you'll see here, I'm going to grab it and outline birthday, and then I'm going to add glue behind my happy, and then I know exactly where it goes because it will fit nicely inside of the shadow die. This is something that I kind of adapted from watching my friend Peter, who used his die to line up his sentiment, and I was like, that's genius. So why have we never done this before? So I'm using the shadow part so that way I know my happy birthday fit perfectly how they were intended in the design. So now I'm going to add a little bit more bling to my card. So just grabbing some random sequins from that Tutti Frutti sparkle mix and using a jewel picker to put them in place. And then I will also use them to glue them down with some wet glue. I did get a little bit of glue. I don't know if you saw me picking at it earlier on my card. So I'm just using my little eraser that helps remove adhesive to get it off of my little circles there. Here is a final look at the card. I will glue it to a card base once I'm all done. I'm waiting for more card bases to come in the mail. So for now, it's a card front. Again, here's a final look. I hope you're loving the new Heffy Doodle release as much as I am. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you'll click like, and if you're new here, I hope you'll subscribe and come back. As always, you can find everything I use down below in the description box. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Bye!